Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video here on Santube. Today we're going to be going over something very important. I've noticed I've been getting a lot of questions about, well, why doesn't my print come out that well? Why do I get bubbling? Why do I get warping? Why does my extruder only um, pull out so much filament at a time and I feel like it's not enough? Well, what we're going to go over is one of two main factors in printing, and I believe that this has to do with about 40 to 50% of all failed or imperfect prints that are out there today. Okay, so what we're going to go over today, the first thing I will mention is the extruder calibration rate, which basically is a fancy way of saying the amount of filament that comes through your nozzle. So the flow rate that you get in your slicing program or the tuning that you can do on your printer. So we're going to go over the flow rate again, which is also called the extrusion calibration rate. Okay. The second thing we're going to go over is temperature. Believe it or not, temperature makes a huge difference, guys. If you don't have the right temperature, if it's too high, it won't stick well. If it's too low, it won't stick well. So see where I'm going with this? So there's these two things are going to be our main focus today, and trust me, it makes the world of difference. Okay, because you can have great tape, glue stick, all of that, but if your temperature is too high, your first layer is not going to stick. So these are just some of the things we're going to go over today. And the first thing I recommend that you guys do, so try this at home because this will help you, is go ahead and go to Thingiverse, and I will put a link to this at the bottom as well, guys. But basically you want to print this out. This is the ultimate extruder calibration test. Oh my god, the ultimate. Alright, so what you're going to do is print this out. And basically what we're going to do is, let's say the third step and down, we're going to do temperature at higher than what it normally should be. From the sixth step to the third step, we're going to do, let's say, the amount of flow that comes through, turn it up or down, and then the top part, we'll do it perfectly so you can see what the differences are. Okay. Another thing I recommend that you print is the 20 calibration cube. These are also cubes that you can use to calibrate the amount of flow or temperature as well. So these are the two things I downloaded, and again I will put a link to this at the bottom and show you how to actually use that. So the first thing we're gonna have to do is go ahead and open up Cura. Okay, so here we are in Cura. We have imported our cubes and our steps, or whatever you call this, the ultimate calibration rate steps. Anyways, moving along. I'm gonna print all of these in the same print. Now you're probably wondering, well, if I'm doing temperature change and flow change and other things like that, why am I printing them all together? This is just a side note, guys. There's a lot of cool things in Cura that I feel like people don't know about. I am going to make a video about this later, but for right now, just really quickly show you. If I click on this cube back here, my infill pattern is different, my temperature is different, and my flow is different. I click on this one, it's just whatever settings I have here. Here, again, infill pattern, temperature, and flow is different. So the temperature on this is normal, but the flow is different. It's higher. On this one, my temperature is higher, but my flow is different. And this one is just the perfect print. This one, we're going to go ahead and adjust this in the tuning feature of our 3D printer because I can't cut off sections here. But this is actually a pretty cool feature, guys, that I am going to make a video about later. Just to let you guys know, I mean, if you just get rid of this crap. If you just look right here, every single one of these is different. I mean, I got different infills in all of these. I got different temperatures in all of these. You can do different layers. I mean, you can do whatever the hell you want to each individual things and print them all on the same bed. But again, that's something I will go over in another video. I will make that if you guys want it. If not, there's a brief description of it. But by default, we're going to do layer height 0.2, thickness 2, bottom and top thickness 2, infill density will be 10, temperature will be set at 200, bed plate temperature at 60, diameter of course 1.75, flow will be at 100. We are going to enable retraction. Retraction, basically what it is as you see here, guys, this is just a travel of how it's going to go, but this could actually be stringing. Okay, if you don't turn off retraction, the extruder or your nozzle will be spitting out filament as it travels from here to here. So that's what that is. So we're going to leave that turned on. The speed's going to be 50, and the travel speed is basically when it gets here and is going here, it's going to move faster. So from while it's printing, 50, from here to here, 100. Okay, I've turned on the fan, so basically by default the first couple of layers will not get any kind of cooling, just so it comes out nice and hot and sticks to the bed. Okay, so with that said, I'm going to go ahead and save this to my desktop like so, and just hit save, and we're all done on this one. So let's get it printed. And I think I might go back and change these guys and print the cube separate and print this separate. Actually, I am going to have to print it separate because I got to change this manually. So let's go ahead and delete that. Then I'll make a different Cura STL file for that. But I'm just going to go ahead and save this, and then after I do that, we're going to go ahead and start with the printing. Alright guys, so I decided to eventually go ahead and print that separate anyways. We're going to go ahead and start with these ultimate steps of ours and get them printed, and then we'll go in here manually and change the settings by going into our tuning feature, and I think that should help us do different layers on these. So let's go ahead and do that now. Okay, so the printer is printing here. We're just going to go ahead and make some tiny adjustments to it. Given your printer, if you are able to change the settings in the control box, that's great. If not, then unfortunately you're going to have to go into the slicing program again, and from there redo all the settings. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go to tune, and the first thing I'm going to change is the nozzle temperature. Now, the filament that I'm using is temperature gauged for roughly around 180 to 210, but I'm doing it at 280, 230 to prove the point. So I'm going to take that down to about 200. And that's the first change we're going to make. And we're going to give it some time and let it print and see what happens. Alright, so right there we went ahead and changed our nozzle temperature from 230 down to 200. Now we still have the flow rate, which is a little bit higher, but this will just do the temperature itself, so we can point out a difference at the end and you can take a look. We're about to stop it again and go ahead and do the flow change. Alright, as you can see, the print is still going. We're going to make a few more adjustments on our control box here. We're going to go to tune one more time. And we're going to change the flow from 131, or it was 130, down to 100. Okay? Right back up here. Oh, one more thing we're going to change, guys, on here is the speed. We're going to take the speed down from 100 down to 50. And we're going to see how much of a difference that makes. So now you notice the printer is working a lot slower speed-wise, which is going to increase my time, but that's okay. Alright, so we went ahead and changed the flow rate and the speed on that. So we reduced both. So now our filament is coming out a little bit lower or slower, and the speed that we're actually pushing that out is gotten slower as well. Now one thing I want you guys to notice right here, right off the bat, with the print still on the bed, do you notice the curve right there, which I'm going to talk about later? Because of the heat, it did not stick to the bed, and I usually never have that problem. So these are just some of the things that you're going to run into if you don't calibrate it right. So now this is just a different angle of that, and on this side you'll notice there's a little bit of warping as well. Nothing too dramatic. After this, we're gonna go ahead and take this bad boy right off the bed and get started on our little cubes. Alright guys, so now we're printing out the cubes, and the back left is going to be the one at the higher temperature, and the front left is going to be at the high flow rate or the extruder rate, and the ones on the front and the sides are just there like normal, just to show you guys what it's supposed to look like. Okay, so let's get these done printing and we'll go from there. Alright guys, so we got the calibration steps printed. What I'm going to point out here is you got two lines, one here and one here. Basically what it is if you notice this area here, it was printed at 230 temperature, which recommended was 180 to 210, but we went a little bit over, and from here to here we just turned down the flow from 130 to 100. Okay, if you look right down here, okay, see the layers are not very smooth. There's a little bit of gap because there was so much heat, it didn't give it time to properly cool, so it didn't stick together that well, and that's why you have this line here. And look at the edge, got the little bubbling right there, looks like it was melted, and that's because again the temperature was too high. But now pay attention from here to here, we got a little bit of improvement, and all we did here, we just took the 230 and reduced it down to 200. Now the flow was still here, the flow was still at 130 and 230 for temperature. Here we turned the temperature down and took the flow from 130 to 100, and you can see the difference, okay, from there to there. And then from here, basically I just turned the speed down from 100 to 50. So you can see temperature makes a difference, the amount of flow makes a difference. When you have everything set right, look at how smooth that is. Okay. Also down here you'll notice the melting, but notice as you get higher and higher, it gets sharper and sharper. So eventually you get to this point where it's just a straight line. These don't look straight at all, they look edged. Now another point you can look at is here. Notice, I don't know if you can see it, notice down here it's a little it's saggy. Basically what it was, the when it printed, it didn't give it enough time to cool down, so this started sagging down. Again, this was the temperature, and here we just turned down the 230 temperature to 200, and we also reduced the amount of infill that it was, not infill, but the amount of flow that was coming through. So here's the temperature, 280. As you can see, as it gets higher, here we turned down the speed as well. So from here on up, notice these lines, they're pretty straight, but here you got one falling off, one's sagging, one's bubbling. Also down here you'll notice, look at the difference in the layers of steps that you got.
Okay, this is the very first one right here. This one is bubbling. It's not that smooth, but as you get higher, it gets smoother. And notice the definition on these straight lines. These are not so straight. Okay, let's take a look at the side. Now, I don't know if you guys can tell, but because the temperature was so hot at the bottom, this part's actually warped. It's not a straight line, it actually curves. Okay, I don't know if you can tell or not. Let's take a look. There it is. See how this part's not touching the platform, and this part's not touching the platform, but the middle is. Okay, the reason it's doing that is because it was so hot, it didn't stick to the bed, and it popped up. So these are some of the main concerns that people have. Alright guys, next we're going to go over the calibration cubes that I printed out, and these are basically the same thing, but this one has a temperature of 230, while this one is a temperature of 200. The very first visible thing you'll notice is if you pay attention to the edge right there. See how it's jagged? It's not straight because it was so hot it wasn't able to bond too well together. Now, exact same settings, all I did is turn the temperature down here. Okay, take a look at that line. You can actually see it all the way through, straight line. Here, riffles or ruffles, whatever you want to call it. Here, straight line. That was one of the things. Also, another thing was, if you look at the infill itself, right on top here, you'll see like stringing. It's there, it's bonded, but it's stringy. Here, it's a lot more smoother. Okay. Also, you'll notice here, there's a gap. But on this one, there's no gaps all the way around. Okay. So that's something you just do want to pay attention to. And these are the little things that make a difference. Okay, next. The next set of cubes, the only difference was one had 130 flow, the other one only had 100. Okay, so this is the one that had the 130 flow, while this one was the one that had the 100. I don't know if you can see it or not, but right here, because it was flowing so fast, the base, it wasn't able to lay it down correctly, while here you get a smooth straight line all the way through. Also notice the edge here, straight. Notice the edge here, somewhat straight because the temperature was turned down to 200, but because it laid it down so fast, you still had imperfections. Same thing here. Notice all of that. While here, I mean, it's smooth. You don't notice anything. Okay, now the last one I printed, this one was printed at 200 temperature, 100% flow, 50 speed. Okay, so this one is how your prints should come out to be. Okay, notice straight lines. Okay, no imperfections on these. Look at that, beautiful. Even the infill on the inside, no stringing, no nothing. Everything is perfect. You can see straight all the way down, and that's how you want your printers to print. Okay, so these are some of the comparisons that I want to show you. Now you're probably thinking, well, these imperfections aren't that big, so why does it matter? Well, imagine if you weren't printing tiny little cubes the size of nickels, and you were printing huge prints, and you got little imperfections like so, where your edges weren't straight, or your layering, which one was it, right down here, wasn't that great, and you started getting bubbling on it. So it does make a difference. Now I didn't do too much of a temperature change on this one. Now you can get the same effect if your temperature is too low or your flow is not high enough. it can result in imperfections in your print. So just keep that in mind.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, so that is some of the reasons why your prints don't come out too well or they are failing. Okay, guys, the amount of filament that you flow out of that little nozzle makes a huge difference, and at what temperature it seeps out at. Okay, if it's too hot, it's not going to work. If it's not hot, it's not going to work. It has to be roughly around a comfortable temperature and a comfortable flow rate on that. Okay, again, like I said, I personally believe this is 40 to 50% of why prints fail. People say my bed's not leveled, it's warping, it's not coming off. I know I'm repeating the same thing again, but these two are the main reasons why this happens. So guys, what I recommend is print these little cubes out. Pick the right temperature that you feel is good for you and print it. And if the little cube comes out perfect, I mean, it's 35 minutes just for one cube. If your cube looks good, go ahead and do the big print. Don't just jump into the big print because it might not work if you don't know, if you're not too sure about the settings. Okay, so go ahead and get that done. These little tests are very important to do in the beginning. I had a lot of issues when I first started, which was only 2 months ago, and someone told me about this, and I tried it, and I found the right temperature, right flow, the right amount of infill I want for whatever product I'm trying to print. Or should I turn the fan on, or should I leave the fan off? Should I do a 50% speed and a 20% travel speed, or 120 travel speed? These are all little things that you can play with. Print them on these little cubes, test them out. Now, I've noticed that most filaments, if you stick with the same brand, tend to do the same thing with your default settings that you pick, okay, or your custom settings that you pick. But if you change filaments, I recommend doing the calibration test again, because each filament is different, each brand is different. But my luck so far with the PLA that I've been using has been the same. I've used about 4 rolls or spools of it, and I haven't had any issues with it. Okay, so that's basically the conclusion of this video. If you have any questions, comments, or if you just don't like the videos I make, please leave me a comment below, and I will respond to them in a very professional manner. And if there's something you guys would like to see, let me know, and I will see what I can do. I will have a new video coming out on Cura, the features that I showed you, and also the advanced settings. Besides that, guys, remember, 3D printing is supposed to be fun. Don't get frustrated, enjoy yourself, and like always, good luck and happy printing.
If you like this video, give us a like and subscribe to our channel. Bye!